Well, following on from some recent tales about Moseley Village in my time in the late 60s and early 70s, first of all, I covered a general bit of Moseley Village, and now I'm going to cover the Fighting Cocks and the Bull's Head in Moseley Village. Well, I first ventured into the Bull's Head and the Fighting Cocks, I think it was about 1968, when I was selling International Times magazine, or as a lot of people called it, It. Also, I sold some copies of Gandalf's Garden. I don't know if any of you remember that. There were only a handful or so issues of that. It was quite a specialist thing anyway. I think I had some problems selling that because it was people thought it was a little bit too expensive. Anyway, I started going in to the Bull's Head and having a crafty pint in there. I was still at school then. Still at school. Nobody bubbled me there. Anyway, later on I started going in on a sort of regularish basis and got to know lots of characters in there. In those days, it was the main headquarters for Pete the Feet. I think at some time or other he'd had a fallout with some management there, and he stopped drinking there anyway, from memory. And as I told you, he did start the Moseley Festival. Now, the date I've got for the first badge which I had off him was 1974. That's what it says on the badge, and it's got a picture of a goat on it as well. Don't ask me what the connection is. I don't know. Anyway, drinking there for various years, you come across all sorts of people, all sorts of odd things that happen. They used to have behind the bar a 2-pint, 2-handled glass. Don't know what the purpose really was for it. I thought it was just display. But I remember being there one night and this man buying 2 pints of mild and asking for it to be served into this glass. So he had the glass and we thought, oh, surely he's not going to down that in one or anything. But no, there was somebody a little bit along the bar that he had a grievance with, and he took this 2-pint glass and just poured the lot over this man's head. It was absolutely drenched. In those days, the entrance wasn't on the side, it was in the middle. I don't know quite why they did that, because there used to be a separate bar on one side, a public bar, and then the lounge on the other side. And if you looked up on the ceiling, people had got it's disgusting thinking about this now, chewing gum on foil, and they'd managed to chuck it up on the ceiling and make it stick. So there were quite a lot of them stuck on the ceiling. Some of you out there may remember that rather awful practice. All sorts of people used to turn up and have a drink in there. UB40, who I knew, some of the members of that used to drink in there. And we used to have a yap when they were first starting. And also Steve Winwood sometimes dropped by. You'd see him in there, and nobody really bothered him. He wasn't sort of like, very talkative person, but he was a pleasant enough chap. Interesting, one of my heroes. And who else that I can bring to mind? Lots of people that I went to the Midlands Arts Centre with that used to drink in there. Lots of rather dubious people, and I remember somebody showing me this plastic thing, Watney's Red Ale, Watney's Red Barrel, and it was like a key ring thing. And I said, oh, that's interesting. What's the big deal with that? He said, oh, you can take the end out and you can conceal your microdots inside this. I thought, what's he on about, microdot? Anyway, subsequently I found out later it was LSD, acid, call it what you want. He said the police will never be able to find it. I thought I was talking to a nutcase anyway, but there you have it. Good jukebox, always a very good jukebox in there. And my favourite used to be on a Friday night there. And the other place that I used to go to, which was the Fighting Cocks, a bit further along, they still had an outdoor there. I think later on that sort of went by the way. The landlord, I've mentioned the landlord before. He used to turn the jukebox down if he thought that it was becoming an annoyance, not to the rest of the punters, but to him, because they were putting the money in. There was also a pool table there that Pete the Feet played on, and there was some kind of a darts board thing in one sort of alcove. I can't remember how that worked, but I think it had electronic scoring. Oh, and there was a fruit machine. And one night I was in the Fighting Cocks, and this chap who I didn't know was talking to me. And then a young woman came along, said something to him, and she was Scottish, this young woman. And all of a sudden I saw him keel over. Anyway, it turns out that he'd been out with this person, and she stabbed him twice and went out the pub. So police came, took statements from loads of people, wouldn't let anybody out. Came round to my house because I was stood right next to this chap. He did survive, incidentally, and I think they did catch this woman, and I don't think she was done for attempted murder. I think it was wounding or whichever, but they'd got some kind of history. Things like that would happen very occasionally, but that's the first time, thankfully, anything like that's happened by me. But I couldn't understand why he just sort of keeled over. There used to be an elderly chap who was sozzled more than he wasn't, that collected the glasses, called Jock, and he used to wear a football shirt on. But the trouble with him was, if you put your glass down and there was, say, about that much left in the glass, he'd swipe the glass, drink what was in, and take the glass away. And he was one for the barley wines as well. Pleasant enough man, but just hold on to your drink. In the Bull's Head, which I mentioned before, there used to be a chap there called Auntie John, or sometimes he was known as John the Queen. Different days then. I suppose he was early to mid 40s, and I'd have a drink with him. We'd have a chat and whatnot, and got on okay. And for years I went in there, and he was having a drink in there. I do know what his surname is, but I'm not going to say it on here. But a lot of people in Moseley will remember him. Anyway, he then moved to the Fighting Cocks, and of course we used to share. I'd give him a cigarette, he'd give me a cigarette, blah blah blah. There was nothing, no funny business or anything like that. And then the one day, I think it must have been a Sunday or something like that, something was going on in the lounge of the Fighting Cocks, and I couldn't get in. I couldn't really get in to get served too many people at the bar. So I walked round to the public bar, because there was another little bar at the side as well, which was like a snug. I went to the public bar, and there was Auntie John, as I said, many people called him Auntie John there, and he really had gone to town on the barley wines. So he saw me. It was with these other chaps he was laughing and joking with. Saw me, came over in a very inebriated state, planted a kiss on the side of my face. It was a shock to me, I can tell you. And he certainly wasn't a family member, and he certainly wasn't French. And he said something or other, because he was really sozzled. The landlord came out and said, "You," to John, "you're barred." and take your girlfriend with you. Girlfriend. I thought, I'm not having my reputation tarnished like that. So I couldn't get in. I was barred. I was barred for, some time from there, just because a bit of silly drunkenness. Another thing that happened there was the landlord, if you ever went out with one of his daughters, you were barred from there. You were barred. So I was barred. Another occasion because of that. And when the bar was up, I went back in and he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm not going out with your daughter, am I?" So, the bar's up. So he pondered for a moment or two and he said to me, "I decide when the bar is lifted on you, the ban, whichever he called it." He said, "Besides of which," he said, I don't like what my daughter's told me about you. I don't like what she's had to say about you." Anyway, I thought, what are you on about? She only went to the pictures with me once. Nothing happened. There's no stalk on the way or anything like that. So I didn't say that. I didn't say that bit to him. So he said, "I don't care. You're barred," and that's it. So out I went. And these bars used to come and go. And some people, he'd forget about it and he'd let them back in. The little snug area at the side, there was a chap that used to come in, and he had a little dog. And I don't think they generally allowed, people to bring a dog in. And he was there the one night, and there used to be a chap who, I suppose he'd be about 60 then, maybe, something like that. And he always talked with a far back accent like that. Anyway, he had some contretemps with this, now there's posh, with this chap with a little dog. And I went to the loo, I came back, and this far back man, whose name I can't remember, So the far back man said something to the chap with the dog, and the man with the dog took the chain off his dog, and he copped this fella on the side, just at the side of his head, and it cut his ear. So just up the stairs as you went up to the top, there was a payphone there. So someone said to him, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" He said, "I'm ringing the Canadian Embassy." Canadian Embassy? Why is that? Because I'm Canadian originally. So he'd got this number and he rang the Canadian Embassy, and they must have thought, "Oh, this is just some drunken fool," and they put the phone down on him. But he said to them, "I'm standing here in a pool of blood," which it wasn't a pool of blood. I'm totally lacerated from head to toe. So they put the phone down on him. These kind of things used to happen all the time. Up those stairs, Ruby Turner and UB14 other people used to rehearse up there. Ruby, I'm still in touch with her now. Anyway, I still speak to her from time to time. And I'd seen a couple of people, a performance at, up the stairs. And it was a woman who was sort of an operetta singer in her earlier days called June. Name's gone now anyway. And she was performing there. She was Joan Turner, that's it, Joan Turner. And the tickets were £1, so a couple of us just went up for a laugh anyway. So she did her act. She still got a decent voice, but she came and sat on my lap, which I thought was a bit step too far anyway. And some people that I worked with saw this, and they were teasing me about this, about when you seen your Auntie Joan. So I ended up with an LP signed to me by Auntie Joan. I'll show you one of the days. But when she'd finished her performance a bit later, she stayed for drinks with some of the clientele from the pub. And when the taxi driver came, she didn't want to go, and she was very inebriated, and she threw a load of change at the taxi driver and told him to F off. But all sorts of things used to happen in Moseley. All sorts. Sometimes I could go down to that pub or the Bull's Head and see people that I hadn't bumped into for years. Mind you, if I went down now, I wouldn't see anybody that I know because probably a lot of them have popped their clogs. Oh well, that's the third Moseley memory. So I'll maybe do some more for you if you enjoy this. If you have enjoyed it, please tick a like or subscribe, and then you won't miss any of the stuff that I put up. Okay, take care. Have a great day. Bye.